Alright, in this video we're going to talk about why your borrowing power sucks even though you've got a great income. I've called this video high income, low borrowing power because it's a problem I see all the time. You're working hard, your pay slips look great, and when you go to the bank, the number they give you is surprisingly low. So in this video, I'm going to pull back the curtain on the common and maybe not so common things in your financial life that are secretly killing your home loan application. And we're not just going to talk theory. To make this crystal clear, we're going to invent a couple, give them real world income, and watch in real time as we apply these borrowing power killers to their application. You'll see how much financial damage each one does, line by line. Alright, let's set the scene. As you know, being here on the Gold Coast, the property market has gone absolutely nuts. Especially since COVID. It's no secret, prices have skyrocketed for houses and for units. And pretty much all the news you see at the moment is prices are going up. And honestly, it sucks. It is what it is though. And if you want to buy a home, you have to learn to work within the system. So let's meet our dummy couple. We'll call them Tom and Sarah. They're both on good money, earning $80,000 a year each for a combined income of $160,000. They have two dependent kids, let's say aged 4 and 7. Based on that snapshot alone, their starting borrowing capacity is around $720,000. Remember that number. It's our starting line, and it's looking pretty good. But now, let's get into the nitty-gritty and how banks actually look at them. So, the first thing you have to understand is the bank's mindset. Let's be honest, they're a giant. They're making billions of dollars in profit every single year, and they're not really here to give us a hand up. They're there to make money by lending out their money with the lowest possible risk. So our job is to paint them the perfect picture of ourselves as a borrower to prove to them that we are investment worthy. To do that, they have two big rules that create what we call a floor and a ceiling on what you can borrow. So the first thing is the floor. It's something that we call HEM, or the household expenditure measurement. This is a minimum living expense figure that the regulator APRA forces the banks to use. For a couple like Tom and Sarah, the bank has to factor in a minimum spend of $4,920 every single month. It doesn't matter if you tell them, nah, we only eat $2 noodles every night and only drink water. Well, they don't care. They'll use that floor. And that number covers everything. Transport, fuel, car maintenance, groceries, entertainment, things like going to the movies, eating out, going to the gym. Well, for some people that's entertainment. For me, I'll probably class that as a donation. It also includes things like personal care, haircuts, medical bills. You get the idea. That $4,920 figure is the absolute minimum they'll accept. Then you have the ceiling, which is the serviceability buffer. And this thing's a huge killer. This is why you can throw those online bank calculators straight in the bin. You know the ones, you type in your income, spits out a beautiful magic number like 900,000. It's literally just a marketing ploy. The reality is that the bank is forced to add 3% to the actual interest rate. So even if the rate today is 5.7%, they have to assess your ability to repay the loan as if the rate was 8.7%. That single buffer wipes out hundreds of thousands of dollars off your capacity before you've even started looking into your personal debts. So, now we know the rules of the game, let's say. Let's get back to Tom and Sarah and their starting balance of $720,000 and see how it holds up, right? First off, let's talk about the humble credit card. Tom and Sarah have a $20,000 credit card. They're responsible with it. They use it to collect Qantas points for holidays, and they pay the balance off every single month, in full. You might have even heard that having a credit card is good for you, good to build that credit profile. That's more of an American thing, by the way. Not so much here in Australia, but from a bank's perspective, they don't really care if you pay it off. They just see a $20,000 limit as a debt that you could max out at any point in time. And because they work on the limit, not the balance, that one card has just wiped $94,000 off their borrowing capacity. Just like that, our starting figure of $720,000 has plummeted down to $626,000. Hopefully that maths is right. Next up, we have novated leases. This is a really common one, especially for those people who get a car through their employer. So let's say Sarah has a novated lease. Now, these are fantastic for your tax return, but for your borrowing power, they're pretty bad. This is because of what I like to call the double dip. Think about it like this. Remember how HEM, that expense floor that includes all of those running costs, like fuel, insurance, maintenance. Well, a novated lease works by deducting those exact same costs from your pre-tax income on your payslip. That's why I said before, it's great for the tax man. So you're getting hit twice for the exact same expense. The bank has already factored in the car costs via HEM, and now your payslips show lower income because you're paying for them here too. Between that income reduction and the actual car loan repayment that's a part of the lease, the single financial product has just destroyed another $105,000 on Sarah and Tom's borrowing power. So we're down from $626,000 to just $521,000. We have lost almost $200,000 just from two very common things. Third on our list, variable income. Now, let's have a look at Tom's pay. Of his $80,000 salary, about $20,000 of it comes from overtime. For him, it's consistent and he gets it every week. But the bank just sees that word overtime and gets nervous because it's a variable income. The best analogy I've heard for this is that your base salary is the car's engine. It's reliable and the bank trusts it. Any commission, bonus or overtime is just a strong tailwind. The tailwind is great and it gets you there faster, but the bank knows the wind isn't going to be there forever, right? So they can't rely on it. To account for this, they shade that income, typically only counting 80% of it. Now, there are some exceptions. Many banks will take 100% of overtime for nurses or police officers because it's such a normal part of their job, but for most people, that income gets a haircut. And that little trim just cost Sarah and Tom another $25,000. Their borrowing power has now officially dropped down to below $500,000, down to about $496,000. And finally, the over and above expenses. The last thing I want to touch on are those regular expenses that are not included in that HEM floor. This can be things like child support payments, private school fees, or personal life insurance you pay outside of your superannuation. But for the most common one I see by a mile is private health insurance. Tom and Sarah are paying about $300 a month for their family cover. It's a sensible thing to have, but in the bank's assessment, it's just another ongoing financial commitment they have to factor in. But I'm not saying here, hey, let's go and cancel our health insurance. I'm just letting you know how it affects your application. So that $300 a month might not seem like much, but it's costing them another $40,000 in borrowing capacity. So let's tally it all up. We started with Tom and Sarah, a strong household income of $160,000 and what looked like a healthy $720,000 borrowing capacity. But once we factored in one credit card, one novated lease, some normal overtime, and standard family health insurance, their actual real-world borrowing power is just $456,000. They have lost over $250,000, about 36% of their potential borrowing power, from four incredibly common financial decisions. Now, I'm not telling you this to scare you, yeah? I'm telling you this so you're aware. The good news is that these are all things that you can plan and strategize around before you even talk to the bank. You can close the credit card, you can pay out the lease before you apply, and as a broker, we can find lenders who are more generous with variable income. There are always options. So that about wraps it up. I really hope seeing the numbers break down like that, step by step, has been a bit of an eye-opener. Look, if you want to have a chat with a mortgage broker who's been doing this for over 19 years like me, and you want a proper no-nonsense roadmap for your own situation, then there's a link in the description. Just click it. We can have a yarn, absolutely no pressure, and we can figure out where you really need to start. Other than that, have a good one, make some good choices.